Welcome to Just a Social Worker podcast with your host, Lori Eltred, licensed clinical social worker and therapist. Welcome to the podcast that's going to talk about social work in very real ways. We're going to talk about the things going well, the pressing issues and needs, and things that we really need to change about social work. I hope you enjoy our conversations, the insights, the thoughts, and even some of the actions we can take to make our profession, our lives, and our worlds better. Enjoy the podcast. Hi, welcome back to Just a Social Worker podcast with Lori Eldred, and my guest today is Val Laster. She is with Corewell Health. She's a psychotherapist with the Psychiatry and Behavioral Medicine Office. So welcome, Val, to this podcast and to the audience that listens. Before we get kind of started, I'd love to hear about your story and maybe what got you into the field. Hey, Lori.
Hey, all.
Hi.
Thanks for that question. Have been thinking about retrospectively what kind of brought me into social work, and I understand more that I'm motivated by justice. So the more that I've gotten into the field, the more I understand that justice is really a core value, a component for me that motivates me. I go back to thinking about being on the bus as a 8-year-old, and we were a primarily white school in Southwest Michigan, and there was a Black and brown family that started riding our bus, and people were bullying them a lot. And so I would take some of the kids and put them in my seat and defend them, just ward off the bullies. To high school, where I was a peer assisted listener, to hearing other people's gossips as a teenager, but not gossiping, actually keeping those secrets and being confidential. And so there were some natural grains about me, but it wasn't until I went to Western where I had some inspiring social work professors, because the field was kind of percolating then, Lori, right? Like this was in the early 2000s. So, I didn't know about it. I thought I was a psychology major. And then I had Don Cooney at Western, and he just changed my world, thinking about how to impact human behavior and improve, life and wellness. So that was kind of what really grew me into the educational component of it. But when I got into the field and did domestic violence and sexual assault advocacy, I thought about law, and then I don't have the heart for it. So justice just keeps
It's a long
staying with,
education path. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, when I was in that field, I had a woman I was supporting who suicided, but I know she was murdered by her partner. And so I just kept compelling towards, proving that justice should be served. And he did go to prison, even though the coroner had decided it was suicide. So I've had a lot of pieces in my career that have come together. And so I moved out of that domestic violence space into community mental health field, which is where my clinical master's level skills grew, because I knew I was providing a service, this healing service, and I licensed up. So kind of my journey.
And then how did you get or what was your journey like getting into Corewell Health? So folks locally might know Corewell Health, but Corewell Health is a pretty large healthcare system in our area, in the, what would you say, West Michigan area,
Yeah,
even almost start to be the state. Yeah. I was going to say in the state now, it's getting to be a pretty decent, large healthcare system. So how did you make your way to Corewell Health?
Yeah. I was working at Network 180, a community mental health provider in Kent County, and I was doing a collaborative grant-funded program called Care Management that partnered with Priority Health, the insurance plan, to improve wellness and reduce health costs for those who are utilizing inpatient settings. And so I had partnerships with Priority Health, which is a part of Corewell Health. And so there was an opportunity that came up right at the inception of COVID, Lori. Like I interviewed pre-COVID and shook hands, probably last in-person shake hand interviews. And then I started in virtually with the Priority Health insurance sector of Corewell Health for about 4 years before I transitioned the last 2 years into the provider realm of the Corewell Health array of services. Yeah, we have 80,000, more than 80,000, I'm sure now, employees across the state of Michigan. So We're pretty massive.
Yeah, I didn't know you guys were that big. I knew it was big. And I remember, as a kid, I had Priority Health as a kid. That was our healthcare insurance. So I've been familiar, but I didn't realize, it's grown that substantially. And you and I have had some shared experience, because I think you left care management through Network 180 and I had taken over, I think, that role, because I had taken over, because I was in utilization management at Network 180. And then had taken that role on, because I had started at UM like the October 2019, like I mean, I was only a couple months in, and then it was like, obviously COVID happened, and then everybody's going home, and I don't know that I'd ever had that. I don't know that I'd ever had a virtual position that way, so that was another big learning curve, I'm sure, for
Uh-huh,
lots of us, so
uh-huh. Mhm.
but yeah, I think you and I had talked before, that we've had a bit of a simultaneous path that you were running care management, and had been for, I think, a handful of years, and then, I had kind of taken that on. So I just chuckle in terms of this area, right, in West Michigan, how it feels maybe like a larger area, because I think Grand Rapids is a fairly big city, maybe the second largest behind Detroit, but also very small in the same ways because the social work community kind of know a lot of each other.
Yeah, our parallels we were
Mhm.
finding are um, aligned in that sector of the many places our careers have brought us, Larry,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, because I left that and just went into private practice and again became like a full-time kind of psychotherapist in that way too. So yeah, there's definitely those parallels, which are it's always interesting, right, to see the vast diversity in the field. And you can be in, right, you can work in domestic violence and sexual assault, then you can move into care management, which was that integrated care team. You can be a psychotherapist, there's just much you can't do. I think there's a bigger list of or maybe a smaller list of the things that you can't do than kind of the other way.
I agree with that. I also like make a joke that I've been able to serve the lifespan because I've gone from infant mental health all the way up to serving Medicare members. My oldest patient being 93. So the spectrum of life experiences, these different specialty arenas, like you said, these grassroots organizations with domestic violence or sexual advocacy, in different arenas that you can sharpen skills in, but also learn so much from what you serve
Yeah.
is actually frankly continually inspiring. And it is nice to land, I guess, for both of us in our parallel now back into that direct service and really pouring into the individuals in an outpatient therapeutic realm.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And also it's been cool to watch over, I think, the handful of years of ways that social workers are getting into other aspects of community or of the community spaces we go into, just the ways we show up. Because I think about social workers, public libraries have social workers now, right?
Yeah.
And so, which when you think about it, you're like, God, that makes so much sense because so many folks go to public libraries to get on the internet, to help with job searches, housing, filling out applications because we still have, parts of our communities that don't have access to like internet or don't have reliable internet at least. Or even if you're an older individual, don't maybe know how to navigate that.
Under accessed
Yeah.
resource in our community, those libraries. That
Yeah.
and in police teams like in Kent
Hmm.
County, they have those hot teams where they have social workers on hand now to crisis respond and emergently respond. Yeah, putting us in places where we're needed, where we
Yeah.
can be utilized, where needs are presenting.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I have, I know folks that are in like veterinarian medicine, like they're getting social workers in there for pet and animal loss, but also for veterinarians, because veterinarians have an interesting experience with like kind of loss and bereavement, and even just that aspect of having to kind of put pets to sleep and actually, interestingly, have some higher rates of suicide than the general public does. I mean, there's just so many interesting ways that social work can be kind of interwoven into places you would never think a social worker would go into, right? Police
Yeah.
stations,
Yeah.
like the hot team here in Kent County is a great one. Public defender offices. I mean, there seems to be, yeah, a very long list of the ways we can show up.
At Coral Health, we developed a position even like in our Lemon Holton cancer pavilion. We have like financial navigators that are social workers
Oh,
because
nice.
we recognize this gap in care when you come into the cancer diagnosis and how financially distraught that creates. Situations for even with meaningful full time employment and financial privilege, upper middle class families struggle when you have to go into those chemo radiation treatments. So social workers are doing that kind of like financial building work, even at
Yeah.
Corewell Health. Really interesting spaces that we're occupying.
Yeah. Yeah. And even, the ways that it's getting harder to access Medicaid and Medicare, some of the barriers, work requirements, right? tricky ways and the complication of filling out the applications, the way questions are worded, right? Like being able to access, talking about the internet, being able to get on the internet. Cause I think at this point in time, at least in Michigan, that's, I think, one of the only ways you can get a Bridges application completed is going online. Like I don't know that they have paper anymore. When I started, they had that was the only thing they had was a paper application. You were sitting down with clients and helping them fill out and thinking, goodness, this is a big application. But just some of those complexities, and I could imagine social workers at Corewell Health helping for people who don't have any type of insurance, right? Because that is the unfortunate consequence when you start to limit Medicaid or make that really hard. People still need health care. They're just not going to go to their primary care. They're going to end up in an emergency room, which just increases costs for every one of us. And so if you can get someone signed up for Medicaid, it might be helpful for them. So,
Absolutely.
and not have that medical debt or the worry, right? It's like, how am I going to pay for this or the bills and all of that that can really happen. We have a lot of medical debt. So
Yeah, I have
it's
a
good to hear
background
that.
I have a background in clinical care management too, Lori. And so when I hear that even in sessions sometimes with the MI Bridges, like barriers that we hit with patients, and I know they have a generalized anxiety condition already, and it's probably going to be the barrier for them to even complete that. I might even like stop in session and be like, do we need to pull up your Bridges account now? Should we take some time, 10 minutes in session to like move that forward, right? Because those are some things that we might think are simplistic, but to someone who might be struggling in their mental health, it's a surmountingly unapproachable task.
Yeah. And designed that way too. So, I mean, it's also designed to be difficult, right? That means test component of it's designed to be difficult. So, if you are a person that struggles to read, has literacy needs, language, right? I mean, English might not be your first language. So, that can be a complexity. And yeah, and as therapists, I don't think that is something we should be taking completely off the table because sometimes it is basic needs, accessibility that contributes to some of those mental health struggles and symptoms. So
Well,
I
and I
kind of
know
do.
it's going to disrupt our care because they're going to lose their coverage and then we're
Yep.
not going to be able to see each other. So if
Yep.
we can take 10 minutes in session to ensure that we have continuity of care, then we're going to keep moving forward
Yeah.
clinically, right? And in
Yeah.
their goals.
Yeah. And the very real ways that sometimes those are just, here's a community resource, here's right. I mean, the ways that we can still incorporate that into our work. Because at the foundation, we're social workers, and that is the linking, coordinating, we're making those referrals, knowing all those community resources. So it can
Uh-huh.
be beneficial as therapists as well. So, what are some issues kind of you see coming up for the social work profession in general?
Good.
Or
That's
things
a
that maybe even see changing in our profession? I know we talked about the ways like social workers are showing up in all aspects of our communities, but
uh-huh.
anything you see, any hot topics you're seeing?
Yeah. Yeah. So the hot topic that's like near and dear to my heart that I'm personally developing in and professionally practicing and inspiring patients with is not just like this talk therapy. Remember how we had got made fun of as therapists where you lay on a couch and we
Hmm.
psychoanalyze you and we're
Hmm.
just gonna like listen and judge. I think of What About Bob?
Hmm.
It's one of my favorite
Hmm.
movies of all
Yeah.
time where Richard Dreyfuss like just judges Bob and doesn't want anything
Yeah.
to do with him in any authentic
Yeah.
way, which then kicks Richard Dreyfuss off the deep end.
Yeah. But also, like, that might be a reference. He knows because that's also like, I think about, oh, I remember What About Bob, but it is a good movie. If you're a younger social worker, look it up.
That's so
Yeah.
good. Thank you for
It's
the
good.
plug. That's
Yeah.
good. But we've moved away from just telling people what to do. I find that this is like a collaborative match. And so part of being collaborative in the match, I think, is also serving the whole body in an integrated capacity as a whole person. We had the Integrated Care Act, I think 2016, whatever. I'm not going to try to say the date, but where we decided that the proverbial head is on the body. It's not behavioral
Hmm.
health and medical. It's like
Hmm.
it's all relevant and intersectional. And so, my biggest investment is somatic work now. Really like bringing the body into the awareness, from our tips of our toes all the way up to our mind and trying to bring that together and as cohesive of a way as we can so that we can be present in ourselves and in our values. So that's how we deliver, as opposed to
Mhm.
projecting and ruminating in our interactions, right? In our relationships. And so that somatic work can get us more in touch with what our body's signaling to us,
Mhm.
instead of, I guess, acting that out or behaving that out, in relationally challenging ways. So
Mhm.
the somatic work is a huge place. I do the Michigan chapter of the National Association of Social Workers does a mind
Mhm.
body
Mhm.
work group. It's free. Everybody can come. There's a Facebook group. They're super friendly, and I've learned so much being part of that work group for the past year and a half, including like neurographic art movement. And so it's catapulted what I've already personally been investing in with, bringing this mind body component together. So that's definitely near and dear and brought in all of my, therapeutic relationships.
I was just gonna plug that too. When you started talking, I was like, "And there's this work group," but you beat me to the punch. Nice. Good. I like it. I
Parallels,
definitely
right?
right, I definitely agree. There is this more just in very different ways, the incorporation of somatic work, of this shift from, like, we are just this brain to, like, this whole ecological, organic, right, like, system, and you cannot take one without the other. So which is, also interesting because your brain is contained within your body, so the fact that we've had that silo is very interesting and
Sure.
probably for a lot of good reasons, right? Like who would have thought that your brain is part of your body? So
Yeah.
crazy.
So my interest has become more neurological in essence than
Mhm.
ever.
Yeah.
If we're gonna point to the system that might be most impactful there. So that will continue to grow for me. I do some of my own modalities of healing too that are somatically activating, which are wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. What any that you want to talk about that you use either with
Yeah. So
clients or as much as you want to individually?
autogenic response training from VA work is a really great modality. Look it up, try it. ART is what we often call it. There's a really good
Okay.
script from the VA that I use a lot with patients that can be rehearsed really specifically. That the more that you rehearse it, the more it gets to that ease, that parasympathetic content, signal. That would be one of them. The one that I like, I do a lot of sound therapy now, a lot of like
Okay.
movement therapy, and acupressure is one of the things that I've been investing in. I do that twice a month, and that's been really awakening, is how I would describe it,
Nice.
Lori. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm familiar with art and I can put a link in the show notes about kind of folks interested in art. I'm an EMDR therapist, so there's some similarities and differences, but yeah, I mean the ways we can interrupt patterns, right? Work on that default, mode network
Mhm.
that we all
Mhm.
have kind of habitually reinforced and being able to work with that and shape it,
Uh-huh.
make it healthier. So our
Uh-huh.
default is maybe a bit different or healthier
Mhm.
or more present for ourselves. So yeah, I can put some links into some of that. I have somebody I supervise that she uses that and we've had some great conversations about how healthy and helpful it's been for her clients. So any other kind of emerging things that you
There's
see? I mean, the
something
somatic
burning. Yeah.
stuff.
There's
Yeah.
something burning in me that's outside the somatic stuff. Because that's growing rapidly in our field, and I like the redefinition that it brings too, from away from that kind of proverbial "let me tell you what to do" as a therapist, because that's
Yeah.
not what this is,
Yep.
right? This is a collaborative empowerment dynamic for those to find that they're the expert in their own lives,
Mhm.
when we're therapists. That's my belief. But I am nerding out about AI. I'm not techie. I'm like slowly becoming
Mhm.
the older generation about AI. But AI in social work, AI in the world, but AI in social work, I can't get enough. I keep wanting to eat it up. It's growing rapidly. It's impacting all avenues of functioning, and with how rampant it's developing, the reverberative impacts are still unknown. We don't have policies. We don't have ethic. Like
Yep.
we have some ethics, but I am just so curious. So we even had at our core wellness symposium a speech from one of our psychiatrists that was phenomenal on AI and the impact in the medical field overall. I just keep nerding out wanting to know what we should be doing first and foremost about like AI psychosis, for example,
Mhm.
what we should be promoting, what we should consider when it comes to dictation devices for
Mhm.
our sessions, because I
Yeah.
feel like I get a little pushback. I'm 41, but I'm a little pushback generation of like, I don't know if that belongs in this space, but
Yeah.
It's in so many medical spaces. And so I know
Yeah,
this is a big one to chew off, but I just can't get enough of understanding how that's impacting individuals, especially when they're having full on, AI relationships
Mhm.
with
Yeah,
with technology. That's
right.
really just a parrot box. It's not an interactive component. Ask probing, interesting, curious questions. It
Yeah,
fuels you the way you want it to, the more that you
yeah,
use it. So I'm talking about more chat AI now,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Um, but I can't get enough of AI stuff. I
yeah.
just want to know more about how it's impacting our individuals because it sure is.
Yeah. And it's designed, I mean, that's the trickiness of it. It's designed to kind of tell us what we want to hear, right? So in some ways, this idea or belief for having a relationship, which would hopefully be more attuned and attentive and maybe not always telling us exactly what we want to hear, right? Challenging us and getting us to think about things in different ways. But that's just not what ChatGPT and OpenAI, I mean, all of that is for. And it's becoming, right, so part of everything. One of those things I've heard is similar to like when the internet kind of started to becoming more mainstream in the ways that's really become part of everything. Like you can't, at this point in time, you can't really exist without some type of access or needing access or using the internet, for your day to day life. And AI it feels like kind of the next step up from that. Cause yeah, you can use it everywhere and we don't. You're right. We don't have laws haven't caught up with it. Ethics are, I would say, there are some, but pretty minimal at times. Like, and it moves pretty fast. I sometimes worry, is it going faster than we're able to like understand and keep up and like have conversations around. So yeah, I would
And I
say AI is pretty interesting too for me.
hear you. I would just affirm that yes, it is. It's just bustling where we're at. I guess one patient said to me, Lori, you know, man, I just started using that chat GPT and it's almost like having you in my pocket. And so my question often I find like that was like my first, I was instead of my eyes bugging on my head and being like, no, because it's not at all like our interactional human relationship. I, took the opportunity to open end question that in a very curious way. What do you think is different between our relationship and your relationship you're developing with your AI, right? And just really using that language and really bringing it in as a reality of an
Mhm.
interactional component of their life
Yeah.
and being able to gauge the difference, right, between relational quality and the AI dynamic, because they're
Yeah.
different. And so we did. I mean, that patient has eventually come to, yeah, it's actually not at all like our relationship, but it does help me
Right.
reformat my thoughts in a more concise way. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not corrective. It's just, I think engaging individuals about what that actually looks like for them can be really helpful in a curious way.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be a tool. It doesn't maybe, it could be a tool, but not a replacement for a relationship, right? Like you said, the ways can give us information. It can synthesize that pretty quickly, help us be more concise and, in maybe some large topic or thing or idea that we're having. How do we present that, right? Information. So, yeah. Is that something that's been being able to kind of dig in, experience AI kind of a part of the work that's enjoyable, or is it kind of enjoyable as well as hard at the same time? Like, kind of what do you find, I guess,
Yeah.
enjoyable about the work?
Yeah, I will set the technology aside and say that's kind of a harder part, kind of like the bane of the keep up with the service notes. It's
Yeah.
like we
Oh,
need to
yeah.
do the documentation, but I'd
Yeah.
rather be with the people. That's most
Yep.
of our statements. But I really do enjoy the direct input of being able to impact with my service families, individuals, and hear the stories and have my stories of home visiting days and
Hmm.
AFC, moments and what's brought some jadedness in me, but also continued awareness and presence. I like bonding through our work. Like we've had this opportunity even through this podcast too to like find each other more and kind
Hmm.
of see each other. That's always been, encouraging to me. But I also I had a leader call me and one of my colleagues like these system barrier busters. So, like what like just really
I
kind of
like that.
moving through those system barriers because I quote that a very wise professor told me a long time ago and I didn't get until definitely about 10 years into my career is that our system isn't broken, it's built this way. So it's like it's intended, it's by operation, that it's challenged. And so, I take on that challenge quite honestly, and have crucial, assertive conversations as regularly as they need to be towards what I call eyelashes of change. Because I'm not looking for big old strides and 50 pounds lost, or that just human condition shifting is they're minutia moments. They're savoring moments that we can cheer on when we witness them for each other. And so, like in my career, I remember Gandhi saying, we be the change you want to see in the world, and being like, yeah, and like feeling motivated off that. But like really, I really actually still have the starfish story posted in front of my desk, and it still like comes back to me. If you haven't heard it, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the starfish is basically someone was walking along the beach. There were a bunch of starfish beached up, drying out, and they were taking the starfish and putting them back in the water. And someone said, "Why'd you do that?" And they said, "Well, it made a difference to the one." And
To that little starfish,
to
those little
that one
cute thing.
starfish. I heard that probably when I was 20 years ago. I still have it at my desk, and it still is exactly why I do social work. That
Mhm.
one little eyelash of change made that difference, and that's what inspires me
Yeah.
continually, and I enjoy.
Yeah. Social work is not a sprint. It is a marathon. It is those small changes, the persistence, right? The kind of just that one foot, kind of in front of the other, right? In the ways exactly systems are set up and are designed to do exactly what they're doing. They're pretty large, they're self perpetuating. There's a lot of moving pieces, within them. And so any way we can make small changes. I think if I'm making a small change, you're making a small change, my coworker's making a small change, the person down the hallway is, it's like that cumulative effect,
Mhm,
hopefully makes a bit of a
mhm,
difference.
mhm,
So,
mhm.
what would you like to see social work do more of?
Wish that they would give us
That's
space
good. Good
that was
question.
like paid for to like be
Yeah.
together and
Yeah.
and exchange ideas, because we get into our service so like intently, and then because of the high level of burnout in our field, then we get home and like home work, and like it's
Hmm.
hard to do. But I end up having a bunch of friends and are like that are just happen to be social workers, and sometimes our conversations when it's just one on one, I'm like, we should be all together. This is great
Right.
stuff. Finding
Think tank.
each other. Yeah, that mind body work group, you get familiar with people. It feels like it just enhances that sense of belonging. I wish we had more paid space to do that, would be how I would put it, which is hard to say to a private practice clinician. Where we get to gather and have honest conversations. What I would like to see more of in the social work field is, again, AI training, like really actually from the NASW, please, so that we have like a guide to go along with. I'd like to find some, um, this is my value for me only, not necessarily the whole field, but I'd like to find how we can, it's a hard word to use in this arena, but I'm going to use it, safely politically motivate.
Hmm.
Because the our state of being right now, with a lot of the disparaging things happening, is everything I'm hearing about every day. And so
Me too.
activating around that right now feels trepidatious and motivating. So it's a hard space to figure out. That
Yeah.
would be a wish.
Yeah, I concur on this being what's happening in current events showing up every day with every one of my clients, in that dual awareness, that dual perspective of like, I'm also living in this, also having my own reactions and feelings and thoughts, and also helping clients try to navigate that in a way that helps them feel empowered and have some control, but also ways that they're going to take care of themselves, because you can't be on listening to political stuff 24/7. Like, you got to take a break, like anything, right? We can't be just in it for hours and hours and hours and not have it maybe impact us in negative ways. So that balance, and I have got clients that have figured out some very creative ways that they hold their legislators accountable, that they let their legislators know how they feel and what they would like their legislators to do, or just other ways they're kind of, politically active, or kind of using different ways to be involved. So whether that's financial or protesting or phone banks or any of those ways. I agree. I wish, yeah, there would be more direction and guidance on AI. How should we carefully be thinking through this? What questions should we be asking? Like policies, practices, as well as, how are we navigating this? Because our code of ethics does call for us to be political, which is great. And yet, okay, how do we help our clients, kind of navigate that? I, as a private practice owner, probably have a little bit more latitude because I'm my own boss than when you're in a big healthcare system, or, what if you're working at a Christian nonprofit organization, right? And some of those things and the ways and your beliefs and values might be a bit antithetical to their values, mission statement, vision type thing. So I think navigating that is tricky, and at this time. Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you would want folks to know? Maybe how people could get a hold of you if they were so inclined?
I'll just plug the other two things I do in my free time. They've been the stability of my career, because we ebb and flow every 2 to 4 years is our average, where we seek new opportunities of growth and career. So, I throughout those ebbs and flows for me, as I've shifted different positions, I've maintained position at the MDHH, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services Children's Trauma Initiative as a consultant, has both personally and professionally transformed my understanding of the impact of trauma. And then I do a local parenting group that's trauma informed for Wedgwood Christian Services. Half of the year,
Awesome.
I'm doing it now. I love it. It's stuff that I seek in my free time. I shake my head and smile because it's what us social workers do sometimes, because it's just so impactful. And so those are great opportunities. You can find me on Corewell Health's website. You can look up Val Laster on Corewell Health. I can give you that information, Lori, for you to connect to the podcast as well. And I guess I just encourage you, because that starfish stayed with me. And so you choose to pick up those starfish. That's, I guess, my roundabout way to say, come and join us. Social work is a captivatingly dynamic field that you never know what is going to both professionally compel you and personally.
Yeah. Yeah, we get a lot of practice being able to be flexible, live in lots of discomfort and unknown. I just had this conversation yesterday about when you take that step back and take the perspective of how much we can tolerate very big swings in what's happening, with clients, with ourselves, walking and doing home visits, right? Changes in policies, funding. I mean, we're always kind of adjusting and modulating in so many different ways. So, and we can be on the cutting edge of things, like with AI stuff, being a social worker at a public library or in a veterinarian's office. There's even some cool stuff going on in the macro aspect. So yeah, it's dynamic, it's changing. And if you kind of get bored in one aspect, you can probably find a job that you can do something different. So
then,
don't
like
get
you
bored
said,
much.
you be versatile, Lori. And
Yeah.
I'm going to make another 90s pop culture reference from Friends, where Ross was saying pivot, because we just pivot. If you haven't seen that scene, you can find it. But we just pivot. We do.
Yeah,
and it grows things for us. It's awesome.
It is. So I will put in show notes just that link. If you, I'm sure I can probably look that up and drop that link in if people want to email you. I'll put in also the link for the Mind Body work group as well, if social workers are interested in that. And I know that they also are doing a Mind Body Institute. And so there'll be some even training that folks can get around that as well. So I want to highlight that and put that in the show notes. So, well, thank you, Val. It's been a pleasure talking to you and getting to know you and having this conversation.
You the same.
Okay. Take care.
Best. Take care.
Yep. Thank you for listening to Just a Social Worker podcast with your host, Lori Eldred. This podcast is not a substitute for therapy, nor is it a form of therapy. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Should you find yourself in need of support, please check out your local mental health resources, which could include your local community mental health, your local emergency room department, your local crisis mental health center, or you can call the national hotline at 988. Thank you, and thank you for listening.